Admiral Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of his ship, the U.E.'s Vengeance. His eyes stayed fixed on a large screen in front of him. The screen showed hundreds of red dots moving through space. Each red dot was an enemy ship. Each ship carried weapons that could destroy entire cities. The enemy was called the Zephyrian Empire. They looked like giant lizards that walked on two legs. They had ruled half the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Now they wanted to rule the other half too. That included Earth and all the human colonies. Jake had been fighting this war for 3 years. In that time, he had watched the enemy destroy 17 different alien races. The Zephyrians never showed mercy. They never took prisoners. When they conquered a planet, every living thing on that planet died. Commander Lisa Brooks came up to Jake with a tablet in her hands. Her face looked tired and worried. She had not slept well in weeks. None of them had. "Sir, we just got word." "From Kepler Colony," Lisa said quietly. "The Zephyrians hit them 2 hours ago." Jake felt his stomach drop. Kepler Colony had 10,000 people living there, families with children, scientists working on new medicines, farmers growing food for other colonies. Any survivors? Jake asked, even though he already knew the answer. Lisa shook her head. "No, sir. They burned everything. The colony is gone." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. That made it 23. Human colonies destroyed in the past year. Over 2 million people dead. The enemy was getting closer to Earth every day. The human fleet had tried to stop them. Jake had led his ships into battle after battle. Sometimes they won small fights, but they always had to retreat in the end. The Zephyrians had too many ships. Their weapons were too strong. Their shields were too thick. Other alien races had tried to warn humanity. A small group of traders called the Corvin had visited Earth 5 years ago. They told human leaders about the Zephyrian Empire. They explained how the empire grew by destroying other civilizations. "You should run," the Corvin leader had said. "Find new worlds far away. The Zephyrians will come for you soon. When they do, nothing can stop them." But humans did not run. They never had. Instead, they started preparing for war. What the Zephyrians did not know was the humans had been planning something special. Far away from Earth, in the cold darkness beyond Pluto, something was hidden. Something that could change everything. Captain Ryan Clark floated in the command center of a secret base. The base was built inside a huge asteroid that had been hollowed out over many years. From the outside, it looked like any other space rock. Inside, it was full of people working day and night. Ryan looked through the thick glass windows at the construction bays below. Hundreds of workers in spacesuits moved around like busy ants. They were putting the finishing touches on ships, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These were not normal human ships. They were built using technology stolen from crashed alien vessels. Human engineers had spent years figuring out how alien shields worked. They had learned to make alien weapons. But they had also added something special. They had added human cleverness. The secret fleet had 200 ships. Each ship was covered in special metal that made it invisible to enemy sensors. Each ship carried weapons that could punch through the strongest alien armor. Most importantly, each ship was commanded by humans who knew how to think fast and adapt to any situation. Lieutenant Amy Parker sat in the planning room with dozens of other officers. They had studied every Zephyrian battle for the past 50 years. They knew how the enemy liked to attack. They knew the enemy's weaknesses. The Zephyrians always attack the same way, Amy explained to the group. They form up in big groups and try to scare their enemies into surrendering. They think their size and reputation will win battles before the fighting even starts. Amy pointed to diagrams on the wall. But that makes them predictable. If we hit them at the right time and place, we can turn their strength into weakness. They, Secret Fleet, had been training for this moment for over 5 years. The crews came from all over human space. The best pilots from the military. The smartest engineers from the colonies. Even civilian volunteers who wanted to help save humanity. Everyone involved had sworn to keep the secret. Not even their families knew what they were really doing. As far as the rest of humanity knew, these people had died in training accidents or been transferred to classified projects. Back on his ship, Jake received a message from Admiral Susan Hayes, the head of all human military forces. The message was short but clear. The main Zephyrian fleet was moving toward Earth. All human forces were ordered to fall back and prepare for a final battle near Mars. Jake knew this was part of the plan. The human fleet had to look weak and desperate. They had to make the Zephyrians feel confident and careless. Every retreat, every defeat, every loss had been leading to this moment. He turned to Lisa and gave her new orders. Tell all ships to begin withdrawal from the outer systems. Make it look messy. Make it look like we're panicking. Lisa nodded and started sending messages to the other ship captains. Soon, human vessels across 3 star systems began pulling back toward Earth. To enemy observers, it would look like humanity was finally collapsing. But Jake knew better. Hidden in the asteroid fields, Ryan Clark was getting his own orders. The Secret Fleet was almost ready. In a few days, when the Zephyrian Grand Fleet arrived at Earth expecting an easy victory, they would get the surprise of their lives. Jake looked at the red dots on his screen one more time. Soon, those dots would represent something very different. Instead of an unstoppable enemy, they would represent targets. The hidden human fleet was about to be unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same. The war that everyone thought was ending was actually just beginning. And this time, humanity would not be the ones running away. 3 days later, the space around Earth filled with enemy ships. The Zephyrian Grand Fleet had arrived, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. Supreme Commander Vextal stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, looking at the small human. Fleet near Mars. Vex single quotes tall was old, even for a Zephyrian. His green scales were marked with battle scars from 100 different wars. He had conquered more worlds than any other commander in the Empire. To him, humans were just another weak species that would soon be extinct. How many human ships do our sensors detect? Vextal asked his intelligence officer. Only 43 ships, Supreme Commander. Most of them are damaged from previous battles. They appear to be making a desperate last stand. Vextal laughed, a sound like rocks grinding. Together, 43 ships against 800 of ours. This will be over quickly. But Vextal did not know about the ships he could not see. Hidden throughout the solar system, 200 human vessels waited in silence. Their special coating made them invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Their crews had been waiting for this moment for years. Colonel Sam Davis floated in his command chair aboard the stealth ship Silent Thunder. His ship was hidden behind Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Through his periscope, he could see the enemy fleet spreading out across space like a giant net. Sam had been chosen to lead one of the stealth squadrons because he understood alien tactics better than most humans. He had studied Zephyrian battle formations for 5 years. He knew exactly where their weak spots were. All ships, this is Ghost Leader, Sam whispered into his communication device. Enemy is taking formation Delta 7, just like we predicted. Remember your training. Stay calm. Wait for the signal. Captain Alana Rodriguez commanded another stealth squadron hiding near Saturn's rings. Her ships were the fastest in the secret fleet. They would be responsible for taking out the enemy's command vessels in the first attack. Galena looked at her crew. They were young but well-trained. Most of them had lost family members to Zephyrian attacks. They wanted revenge, But Elena had taught them to stay focused. Remember, Elena told her team, we get one chance at surprise. Make every shot count. Target their bridge sections and shield generators. Once we start shooting, they'll know we're here. The Zephyrian fleet moved slowly toward Mars. Their formation was designed to look impressive and scary. The biggest ships were in front, with smaller vessels spread out on the sides. It was meant to make enemies surrender without fighting. But Admiral Jake Morrison was not scared. He stood on his bridge, watching the enemy approach. His small fleet near Mars was bait in a trap. Every ship that the Zephyrians could see was there on purpose. Sir, Commander Lisa Brooks said, the enemy will be in range in 10 minutes. Should we start the retreat? Not yet, Jake replied. Let them get closer. Let them think they've won. On the Zephyrian flagship, Supreme Commander Vextal was already planning his victory celebration. His ships would destroy the human fleet, then move on to Earth. The planet would be burned clean, and another species would be added to the list of his conquests. Prepare all weapons, Vextal ordered. I want this finished quickly. The humans have caused us enough trouble. What Vextal did not know was that Admiral Morrison was counting down the seconds to the greatest surprise attack in galactic history. Hidden ships throughout the solar system were getting ready to reveal themselves. All Ghost units, this is Fleet Command, came the voice through the secret communication channel. Execute Ghost Protocol in 30 seconds. Sam Davis felt his heart beating faster. This was it. After years of planning and training, the moment had finally come. He looked at his weapons officer. Charge all plasma cannons. Target the dreadnought at grid 77. Elena Rodriguez checked her ship's position one more time. Her squadron was perfectly placed behind 3 enemy command ships. All units, prepare for attack run. We go in fast and hard. Throughout the solar system, 200 human ships powered up their weapons. Pilots who had been hiding in silence for days suddenly became deadly hunters. The greatest stealth attack in history was about to begin. 10 seconds, announced the Fleet Command. Voice Major Tony Williams led a fighter squadron hidden in the asteroid belt. His small ships were loaded with special missiles designed to crack Zephyrian armor. Lock onto your targets, people. Show them what humans can do. 5 seconds. Supreme Commander Vextal was about to give the order to attack the human fleet. Near Mars, when something impossible happened. His sensor officer started screaming warnings. Supreme Commander, new contacts. Hundreds of them. They're everywhere. 3, 2, 1. Execute. All across the solar system, human ships dropped their invisibility at the same moment. 200 vessels appeared from nowhere, already in perfect attack positions. They had been hiding inside. The enemy formation all along. The first wave of human attacks hit before the Zephyrians could react. Plasma beams and kinetic weapons struck enemy ships from every direction. 30 of the largest Zephyrian vessels exploded in the first 10 seconds. Colonel Sam Davis watched his squadron's attacks hit their targets perfectly. Direct hits on all enemy vessels. Their shields are down. Captain Elena Rodriguez led her ships in a dancing attack through the enemy formation. Her pilots moved like they were performing a deadly ballet, weaving between enemy ships while firing. Constantly. Ghost Wing to all units, Elena called out. Enemy command ship is breaking apart, moving to secondary targets. The surprise was so complete that many Zephyrian ships began firing at each other by mistake. Their neat formation collapsed into chaos as captains lost contact with their commanders and tried to figure out where the attacks were coming from. Tony Williams and his fighters struck at the enemy flagship where Supreme Commander Vextal was trying to restore order. This is for every human colony you destroyed, Tony said as he fired his missiles. The missiles hit the flagship's bridge section. Explosions ripped through the command center. Vextal was thrown to the floor as his ship shook and began to lose power. For the first time in 1,000 years of conquest, the Zephyrian Empire was losing a battle. Their seemingly unstoppable fleet was being torn apart by an enemy they had thought was weak and defeated. The hidden human fleet had been unleashed, and galactic chaos was spreading fast. The battle had been raging for 6 hours. What started as a surprise attack had turned into the biggest space battle in galactic history. Burning Zephyrian ships drifted through space, while human vessels continued their deadly work. On his damaged flagship, Supreme Commander Vextal tried to understand what had gone wrong. Half of his fleet was destroyed or disabled. The other half was scattered and confused. His perfect formation had become a field of wreckage. "How many ships do we have left?" Vextal demanded, green blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. His tactical officer's voice shook with fear. "Maybe 400, Supreme Commander, but many are damaged. The humans keep appearing from nowhere and disappearing again." Vextal had never faced an enemy like this. The humans fought with a cleverness that surprised him. They did not attack in straight lines like most species. Instead, they moved like a pack of hunters, coordinating their strikes to cause maximum damage. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other alien civilizations watched the battle through their long-range sensors. The news spread from world to world in a matter of hours. The mighty Zephyrian Empire was losing to the supposedly weak humans. On the water world of Aquaria, the dolphin-like Cetans gathered in their underwater cities to discuss the shocking developments they had lived in fear of. The Zephyrians for 2 centuries. "Is it really possible?" asked Elder Sonar Singer. "Can the humans actually defeat the Empire?" "The sensor readings do not lie," replied his aide. "The Zephyrian Grand Fleet is being destroyed. We are watching the end of their rule." Similar conversations were happening on 1,000 different worlds. Species that had been conquered, enslaved, or terrorized by the Zephyrians suddenly saw hope for the first time in generations. Captain Greg Foster commanded the human ship Retribution, which had just captured a Zephyrian communication station. His crew was busy downloading enemy files and sending a special message to every corner of the galaxy. "This is Captain Foster of the Human Colonial Defense Force," Greg announced over the captured Zephyrian communication network. "We are transmitting this message to all civilized species in the galaxy." The message went out on every frequency the Zephyrians used to control their empire. It reached military bases, government centers, and civilian populations across hundreds of star systems. "The Zephyrian Empire has attacked humanity without cause," Greg continued. "They have destroyed our colonies and murdered our people. Today, we show the galaxy that their reign of terror is ending." Greg paused to let his words sink in. Throughout space, alien leaders and common citizens alike stopped what they were doing to listen to the human transmission. "We demand that all Zephyrian forces surrender immediately. Any species that continues to support the Empire will be considered enemies of humanity. But those who stand with us will find friendship and protection." The message sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. For over 1,000 years, the Zephyrians had been the strongest military force in known space. The idea that they could be defeated seemed impossible just days before. On the industrial world of Mechonis, the robot-like constructors began emergency meetings in their metal cities. They had been forced to build weapons for the Zephyrians for 300 years. "The humans offer us freedom," said Unit Prime 7. "Should we trust them? What choice do we have?" replied Unit Construction Chief. "The Zephyrians have enslaved us for centuries. Perhaps it is time for a change." Captain Nicole Adams led a boarding party onto Supreme Commander Vextal's damaged flagship. Her team moved through the ship's corridors, fighting past desperate Zephyrian soldiers. Their mission was to capture the enemy commander, alive and secure. The ship's computer systems. Nicole's team had trained for this kind of operation for years. They wore special armor that could protect them from Zephyrian weapons. Their own guns fired bullets that could penetrate alien shields. "Bridge is just ahead," Nicole told her soldiers through their helmet communicators. "Remember, we need Vextal. Alive. He has information we need." The team reached the bridge to find Vextal and his remaining officers making a last stand. The Zephyrian commander was wounded, but still dangerous. His massive claws could cut through human armor if he got close enough. "Surrender, Vextal," Nicole called out. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is finished. You have nowhere to run." Vextal looked around at the burning displays and dead officers on his bridge. For the first time in his long military career, he had been completely defeated. The humans had outfought and outsmarted his forces at every turn. How? Vextal asked, his voice full of disbelief. "How did you hide so many ships?" "Our intelligence said you were weak." Nicole kept her weapon pointed at the alien commander. "You saw what we wanted you to see. Every retreat, every defeat, every piece of information your spies gathered was part of our plan. We've been preparing for this war for over 20 years." As Nicole's team secured the bridge, they found something that shocked them. The Zephyrian computers contained detailed files on human capabilities, but the information was completely wrong. The aliens had vastly underestimated human industrial capacity, technological skill, and military planning. "They thought we could only build 50 ships per year," reported Nicole's technical officer. "Our actual production rate is 10 times higher." They never realized how much we were hiding. The capture of Vextal and his flagship marked the turning point of the battle. With their supreme commander defeated and their communication networks compromised, the remaining Zephyrian forces began to surrender or flee. But the real shock came when human intelligence teams analyzed the captured data. They discovered that the secret fleet was just one part of humanity's hidden preparations. Behind the scenes, human scientists and engineers had been developing technologies that would revolutionize space travel, medicine, and manufacturing. The galaxy's other civilizations had thought they understood humanity's capabilities. They were wrong. The species that could hide a 200-ship fleet for decades while fighting a losing war had depths of planning and determination that no one had imagined. As news of the human victory spread, smaller species throughout the galaxy began declaring independence from the Zephyrian Empire. Rebellions started on dozens of worlds. Trade routes that had been controlled by the Empire for centuries suddenly became free passage for anyone brave enough to use them. The Zephyrian Empire, which had seemed unshakable just days before, was collapsing like a house of cards. The hidden human fleet had unleashed more than military chaos. They had unleashed hope across the entire galaxy. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Sol. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, but everything around him had changed. The space near Earth was now filled with ships from dozens of different alien species. They had all come seeking friendship and protection from humanity. The Zephyrian Empire was gone. After losing their grand fleet and their supreme commander, the remaining Zephyrian forces had either surrendered or fled to the outer edges of the galaxy. Worlds that had been under their control for centuries were now free. Commander Steve Taylor walked through the halls of the new Galactic Cooperation Center on Luna. As humanity's chief diplomatic officer, he met with alien ambassadors every day. Species that had never spoken to each other before were now working together under human guidance. "The Cetans want to trade their water purification technology for our medical supplies," Steve reported to his assistant. "The constructors are offering to build new space stations in exchange for protection from Zephyrian remnants." Steve had been surprised by how eager other species were to work with humans. Many of them had technologies that could help humanity, but they needed human military protection and organizational skills in return. Captain Helen Carter commanded one of the new human exploration fleets. Her ship, the Discovery, was pushing into regions of space that had been forbidden under Zephyrian rule. Every week brought new discoveries and new civilizations wanting to join the growing alliance. Captain's log, day 183. Helen spoke into her recorder. We have made contact with the Harmony Collective, a group of musical beings who communicate through sound waves. They have agreed to share their faster-than-light communication technology in exchange for our protection. The galaxy was changing rapidly. Trade routes that had been controlled by the Zephyrians were now open to everyone. New colonies were being established on worlds that had been empty for centuries. Scientific research was advancing faster than ever before. Lieutenant Amy Parker, now promoted to Strategic Planning Director, worked in a massive complex built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Her job was to make sure humanity never again faced the threat of extinction. We're establishing defensive platforms in 47 star systems, Amy explained to her team. Each platform will have enough firepower to stop a full invasion fleet. No one will ever catch us unprepared again. The secret fleet had revealed something important about human nature. They could plan decades ahead while keeping perfect secrecy. They could appear weak while building incredible strength. Most importantly, they could turn their greatest disadvantage into their greatest weapon. Former Supreme Commander Vextau sat in a comfortable prison cell on Europa. He had been captured, alive, and was now providing information about Zephyrian technology and military tactics. His empire was dead, but he was helping humanity understand how to prevent future threats. You still do not understand what you have done, Vextau told his human interrogator. The Zephyrians were not the only threat in this galaxy. There are things in the dark spaces between stars that are far worse than we ever were. Admiral Morrison visited Vextau occasionally. The alien commander had become almost friendly during his months in captivity. He seemed to respect the humans who had defeated him so completely. Your species is different, Vextau admitted. Most civilizations become weak when they gain power. They grow lazy and careless. But you humans seem to become more careful as you become stronger. This was true. The victory over the Zephyrians had not made humanity arrogant. Instead, it had made them more determined to protect themselves and their new allies. The hidden fleet was being expanded. New technologies were being developed. Better alliances were being formed. Captain Ryan Clark now commanded the entire stealth fleet operation. The original 200 ships had grown to over 800. Each new vessel was more advanced than the last, incorporating alien technology and human improvements. We're not just building warships anymore, Ryan explained to a group of new officers. We're building exploration vessels, research ships, and mobile hospitals. Our hidden fleet proved that secrecy and surprise can change everything. The galaxy's political map had been completely redrawn. Where once there had been the massive Zephyrian Empire ruling through fear, now there was a loose confederation of species working together. Humanity served as the central organizing force, but they shared power with their allies. On the industrial world of Mechonis, the constructors were building new cities for the first time in 3 centuries. They no longer had to make weapons for their Zephyrian masters. Instead, they were creating beautiful structures and useful machines for trade with other species. The humans kept their promise, said Unit Prime 7 to a gathering of constructor leaders. They defeated our oppressors and gave us freedom. Now we must help them build a better galaxy. Similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of worlds. Species that had been enslaved were now free. Civilizations that had been isolated were now part of a growing community. The chaos unleashed by the hidden human fleet had cleared away the old order and made room for something better. But humanity had learned important lessons from their victory. They knew that power could be lost as quickly as it was gained. They remembered what it felt like to face extinction. That memory made them better leaders than the Zephyrians had ever been. Commander Lisa Brooks, now an admiral herself, oversaw the training of new human officers. Every cadet learned about the secret fleet and what it represented. They studied not just military tactics, but also diplomacy, science, and the importance of keeping secrets when necessary. The hidden fleet saved humanity, Lisa told her students. But it did more than that. It proved that sometimes the greatest victory comes from the most careful preparation. We spent 20 years getting ready for one battle, and that battle changed the entire galaxy. Admiral Morrison often thought about how quickly everything had changed. 3 years ago, humanity had been losing a war against a superior enemy. Now they were the most respected military force in known space. But with that respect came responsibility. The human fleet patrolled trade routes and protected weak species from pirates and raiders. Human scientists shared their medical discoveries with anyone who needed them. Human diplomats helped settle disputes between different civilizations. The galaxy had entered a new age of cooperation and growth. The Zephyrian Empire's reign of terror was over. In its place was something that no one had thought possible, a galactic community, where different species worked together instead of fighting each other. As Morrison looked out at the busy space around Earth, he smiled. The hidden fleet had unleashed chaos, but from that chaos had come order. From destruction had come creation. From humanity's darkest hour had come their greatest triumph.